Ken Spriggs here, part 6 of my Millennium Falcon build. Got a lot of progress done on the lights in this video. Pretty much finished them up as far as the way they're going to finally be. A few more tweaks to do on them as far as some masking, wiring them together with a remote, that kind of thing. But a lot of progress on it, and just about ready to wrap up the lights. Once those are complete, I'll be able to put the kit together and finish up the final weathering on the outside of it. That'll be the last of it. And I have a few ideas for a diorama, which I'm going to be working on, which will also include, as I mentioned earlier, the First Order TIE Fighters. And here they are here. I haven't started building them yet. I did put together a few of them, just click them together, but they'll have to be painted, and they're going to be in a diorama on a desert base from Jakku. So that'll be the next part of it as well, getting that finished up. So a few snags here and there. I had some issues with the lights, the landing lights on the bottom of the kit. Had them all finished, all done, and tried gluing them down with a glue gun, and that didn't go well at all. And I've had some bad times with glue guns in the past, so I should have known better. Once I got the main connections glued down, there were some shorts and they weren't lighting up right, so I had to tear it all out, do it again, put a lot more work into that. So another lesson learned: don't use a glue gun, especially when you're talking about that many lights on the bottom. That something could go wrong. So, but I did get that fixed up, and a lot of progress, as I said. So let me go ahead and show you where we are at this point. So here is an idea that I came up with to do the lighting for the gunner stations. And the easiest way is to share the lighting by putting a tube in between them. So as I showed in the previous clips, I used some UV resistant black styrene to make it, and it's pretty much finished. What I'll do is put some white styrene in the inside of it to make it get a better light box in there for it. But the tube fits right over the gunner station, and it goes between the ship, and it goes between both of them. So I probably won't have to do a lot of masking. I can just black mask that ring in there and the ring in the top so the light doesn't get through. But I cut some notches in it, as you can see there, on both sides, and that is to accommodate the kit part where these little clip-in sections are right there. So it fits right over top of that. It doesn't go completely to the end, but it's pretty close. So when I click them together, that goes between them. And then likewise, I just have a little bit of white tube in between them. It's a little long. I have to trim it down just a little bit, but it goes between them so that they both marry up once I click it together. And then inside of that tube, I'm just going to put probably 2 strips, one on either side, 2 LED strips that will light the entire tube and then light up the photo etch. So let me put that together, and I'll show you how that's going to look when they're both together. You won't see the actual inner tube. So here's the tube inside of the gunner stations, and as you can see straight through. And that would actually be true because there's a tube right through the ship, and it meets up with both of the gunner stations. So there's that plastic tube in between. You can see it right there. And then you can't see it here, but obviously I have the black tube in between that, or not in between, around them, that's going to have the lights. So I'll definitely do the other gunner station. I'm not going to do a ton of detail, but I'm going to sand it out and glue in the photo etch like I did the top one, just so I can have the detail there. Because with that tube in the middle, they're both going to be lit up, and I'm going to use some LED strips, probably 2 of them in between, just to light that up. All right, so let me get some white backing inside of that, and then we'll do some tests on the lighting. Okay, so I put some thin paper thickness styrene inside of it and glued it on the inside to give it some light illuminating properties. And I'm just going to tape that together. As you can see, I just have it taped together. That's probably what I'll end up with. Maybe a little bit of glue in between, but tape's the easiest way to keep that tube together. So, so that'll give it some more light properties between those tubes there. So let me get some light strips in there and we'll see what that's going to look like. Okay, so here's a test fitting, and I ended up going with some of my little surface mounted LEDs on the magnet wire, and I put 2 of them in there just because there wasn't enough room inside of that tube for the strips, the LED strips. So I might end up with 3 of them, we'll see, but there you go. This is the side that I already have photo etched, and that looks really good. You can see the light shining through there on both sides of it, and you can see a little bit of glow in that little white tube between them, and that's what you would normally see. Nothing really super bright that would overpower those control lights there, but there's a light, and certainly you can still see through the entire ship, which you would, but there'll be gunners in between, of course. The gunner will be in the center of this one and on the back one too. Alright, so there's the kit part, and obviously there's no photo etch in there yet, so you're just seeing some of that light shining through. So I think that's going to work fine. I have 2 on the one side, I'll probably put 2 on the other side too, and have the photo etch in between. Enough to light up both of those gunner stations the way I want them to be. And then just naturally the light will bleed over to that little bit of a tube, and it's a very thin tube. Let me see if I can even see in there. It's kind of hard to get a shot in there, but the tube is really, really short. It just barely goes between them. You can probably see there. And I might put a little bit of detail, some really thin stripping in between it to give it the idea that there's some detail, maybe like a little mini ladder or something like that to go between it. So, but I think that idea is going to work well. Let me show that in a little bit darker light. Yeah, so that's not going to bleed any light through on the outside at all. That looks really good right there. And if I do the when I do the other side with the photo etch like this, I'll light it up as well, so both sides will be lit up. But that looks pretty cool. So I like that idea of the tube, putting the light between the two, and it fits together nicely. So I don't even have to glue the tube in the middle, or that white tube. I'll glue it on one side, probably this side right there, and then the other side it just slides right into place, and it marries it just fine. I'll probably have to shorten it a little bit, like I said. And if you can see from that angle, that little white tube in between there in the center is really small. Let's see if I can get a close-up of that. Sorry for the graininess of that shot. Come out to here a bit. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so that center circle right between the two, you can see the tube sticking out. It's not going to be sticking out, it's going to be flush when I'm done. So I'll trim it down, but it's even right there when it's too long, it's still very short. So that's pretty cool. Like I said, I'll put some detail giving it the idea that there's an opening in the middle of it and a ladder that they can jump between the two gunner stations. So, okay. All right. So that looks pretty good. I really like that. Sorry, my battery is falling off of there. I have a coin battery hanging off for now. Gotta hold that, sorry. Alright. Alright, so there we go. So I like that idea. And it lights up all the lights that I needed to. Gives it that cool looking glow in there. So, okay. Alright, let me get that nailed down, and we'll get the gunner stations all finished. Alright, so I did a little bit of a change up on the engine lights in the back. I was using the 4 surface mounted LEDs in the tubes provided. So it's easier, I decided to go with an LED strip. The only downside and disadvantage is that I've got to use a 9-volt battery. 3-volt is just not powerful enough to power this. So, and because I want to use the same power source for this and the cockpit and the LEDs for the gunner stations, I have to use some resistors because the LEDs for the gunner stations and the cockpit are only 3 volts. So not a big deal. I'll just wire some of those in between. And likewise, this is a little too bright for that back engine because it's going to be very close to this. It's just going to fit right into that. So I put a little resistor on this as well. I mean, yeah, a little 100 ohm resistor to take it down just a bit. Let me kind of show you what that's going to look like here. Let's see. And then I'll put it inside the kit and show you what that's going to look like. So, and this is just like a mock-up, as you can see. It's not the final wiring, but there you go. So it's pretty bright, but I dimmed it down just enough to give me the glow I want, but not overly harsh. So let me put this inside of here and I'll show you what that's going to look like. All right, so here you go. And it's going to be a lot tighter lighting. It's going to be another self-contained piece like the cockpit. And once I'm done, I'll black mask the top of this and the bottom so it'll only come through the back. But there you go. You can kind of see it from an angle. When you see it straight on it, the camera, well, it's not bad. You can see the detail, but it looks quite nice. It looks just like the movie. It has like the slightly bluish tinge to it, but you can definitely see the definition of these little grills on the back. So that's pretty cool. And I still have to paint the outside of this grill as well, the color of the ship, and then I'll put some weathering on it. But this is the idea I'm going to go with. Just a little strip right inside of it, and then that'll be wired into the kit with a 9-volt battery. So, all right, so that's pretty cool. Let me go ahead and put this in the ship, and I'll show you what that's going to look like. All right, and here's the new light strip inside of the ship. And I know that looks really bright on the camera, but it's a lot more defined when it's not on the camera. You can see the definition between the grills, and it looks really cool. It looks like the movie does. So I like that idea better, and that's what I'm going to go with on it. I may dim it just a little bit more with another resistor on it. Right now I have it at 150 ohms. I might take it down a little bit smaller. Or I'm sorry, I have it at 100. I might take it up to 150 just to dim it quite a bit, a little bit more. But there you go. You kind of catch a look of it in the camera. But that's going to be pretty cool. And the light strip is a lot easier to do for that back than using the separate LEDs. I just have to use some resistors for the 3-volt LEDs because I have to use a 9-volt battery to get that to light up. So, okay, great. All right, so that's just about ready to go on the back lights. And this is coming together nicely. Just about ready to put it together and then just finish up the weathering. All right. And here is a test lighting with the bottom landing lights and the back engine light. So I have the back engine light on, as you can see, and I showed you that in a previous clip. And let me go ahead and turn on the bottom lights, which are by remote control. Come on. There we go, sorry. Like I said, it's a test fitting, so, and I'm doing it with one hand, so sorry about that. All right, so there are, let me turn this right side up. All right, so there are the landing lights that I showed in the previous video. And I made them some different colors to show the ship's pretty beat up. There's the front headlights, and they're a little bit dimmed as well and kind of badly working. So same thing. I didn't want them to be perfect, especially with this one. This is the ship from The Force Awakens. It's literally been sitting in a junkyard for who knows how many years. Han Solo didn't know where it was, and it's the pivotal scene that I showed at the beginning of the video where Rey says that it's garbage, and then they try to take the other ship and it gets destroyed. So they're like, the garbage will do. So so it's been pretty beat up, but that light looks pretty cool. I got batteries hanging out, of course. I got all the bottom landing lights lit up, and they look pretty good, and they look even bright in normal room lights, so that's pretty cool. So that'll work great. And I have that one that's all beat up and dim because of the damage. I got some normal white ones, a little bit off-white, of course red. I have another yellow one up here and an orange one over there. So those look fine. And then the engine, or the front mandible lights. And then the engine. All right. So I'm still finishing up the light blocking on the cockpit. But that won't take me too long, and then that'll be ready to go in as a test as well onto the side here. And it's coming together. So it's just about ready to get it in there. I don't have the backlight in permanently, and you can see I don't have it light blocked yet. But that won't take me too long. Once I get that in place, I'll be ready to put this together and start doing some weathering to finish it up in the diorama. All right, fantastic. So I decided to make a little change to the gunner pilot. The figure's just too small. Finn, the figure of Finn is just, it's too small to the scale. It just gets lost. It's really even hard to see him as a different size than the chair because he's just so tiny. So what I'm going to do instead is I have a slightly bigger figure there, as you can see. It's from a Voice of the Bottom of the Seaview submarine. It's one of the crew there that's in the seated position. So I'm going to get him painted the same way as Finn here and get him in the seat. And he's a little bit better scale to fit in there. He even sits in the seat a little better too. Get him in there for me. Get in there. Alright, hold on, let me put him in there real quick. Right, there you go. So you can see he looks bigger than the seat, and he should be bigger than the seat. He should stand out. So once I get him painted, I think he's going to be a better figure. And I'll be able to give him the same painting and make him look like the Finn figure as well, as far as his jacket and outfit and everything. So, alright, so that's the only other thing I'm going to tweak on that, and get a little better result on the gunner station and the pilot there. Alright, and here's that figure painted. And here it is. Let me show those two together. Alright, so you can see very tiny still, but he's a bigger looking character. So he's going to be more visible inside of that gunner station. So, okay. All right, let me get him in the gunner station, and I'll show you how he's going to look in the chair. All right, there we go. So he's definitely larger and more visible in that chair, but he's not too large, and he doesn't overpower it. So he's going to be much better in there. Let me stick him inside the gunner station, and we'll see how he looks in there as well. All right, there we go. So you can see he's much more visible, and you can actually see his arms sticking out to the right because he's not just in a very flat seated pose like the figure that came with the kit is. So I think that's going to work a lot better. And you're really not still going to see him that well as far as his face. It's hard to get a lot of detail on his face, but he'll look really cool inside there once that's lit up. There we go. And you're going to see a profile of him and the lit up cockpit. So I like him a lot better. All right, let me get him glued in place, and then I can put those in there and And we'll show the kit with all those lighted sections, the gunner stations, the cockpit, the rear light, and the bottom landing lights. All right. And here's the new gunner pilot in the gunner station. You can certainly see it a lot better. And I have the lights on there with that tube that I showed earlier in the video. There's the gunner station there. And I went ahead and got a initial coat of the gray on the Shapeways cone on the front, 3D printed cone, and there's the cool view of the cockpit lights. And as I said earlier, that the Shapeways is a lot more visible. You can see in there a lot better and see the lights of the cockpit. So that was a really great choice of that there. And then I have the landing lights on the bottom as I showed earlier. And let me turn this around. And the back engine lights. And right now these aren't on permanently. You can see there's some switches and some wires sticking out. Those will all be buried inside, of course, when I'm done. As well as the bottom. There's a switch for the cockpit, or the gunner stations, I mean. And I still have to finish that bottom gunner station as well, as I showed earlier in the video. But I wanted to kind of give an idea of the lights together. So they're all pretty much done as far as the concept and how they're going to be completed. Once I'm done wiring inside, I'm going to have a remote control on the top as well. You can see that little hole there in the detail. That's for the other sensor for it. So it'll be just like I have on the bottom right now, where I can turn on the bottom lights with the remote from the sensor there. Let me pull that up and I'll show you here. Yeah, so there's the try to get a close up. Okay, and you can see it right behind this little pipe. See that little black shiny sensor. And I'm going to disguise that a little bit as well with some of my master weathering master powders to get that to be disguised. But once all the wiring is done, all the lights on the bottom are on one circuit, and they're controlled by this sensor right there, as I just showed you. Once I get the top lights all wired together and the 9-volt battery, there'll be a sensor here, and that'll be used to turn on the cockpit, the gunner stations, and the rear engine lights. With the idea that as far as the main lights, these top ones are going to be on most of the time for the ship. The lower landing lights, those are only going to be on when it's landing, and so they'll be separate. So, all right, but the lighting's coming along really great, and I do like that new fin figure that I made in the top gunner station. Let me pull this out again. Once again, there's my movable quad gun, so I can get a better view in there and see. See if I can get some light in there. There we go. Yeah, okay. So you can see him in there pretty good. And it's nice that you don't see him completely, because it's hard to get a nice paint on his face for that size of it. But definitely the profile looks pretty cool. And that's the part that I was going for. Alright, and then the really cool gunner station lights, which I'll also replicate on the other side of the ship as well. So, okay, so that's coming together really well. And getting very close to being able to get this put together permanently with the lights. And then the last thing I need to do is finish up the rest of the weathering. as far as the outside of the kit. A few other parts like the grills. I have one of them in there from the photo etch, and you can see it's pretty cool. You can see right through the grill and into those metallic fans underneath. So the photo etch will look really nice for those as well. And I still have to put the top ring over that cover as well, which will be on there too. So, okay. So those will be pretty cool as well. All right. Okay, there we go. So this is going to go ahead and wrap up this video for this week. A lot of really good progress on the lighting and really close to getting that all completed. All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you to all my subscribers and all the views on these videos. They've really been going up quite a bit. So I'm very thankful for that. So thank you to everyone, and I will see you next week.